Okay, Matt, whenever you'd like to get started.
All right, great. Well, welcome everyone. Good morning. It's July 28th, 2025. This is AMCC's national 30-minute call, same time every Monday, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central, 9:30 Mountain, 8:30 Pacific. And I'm Matt Bogosian, Executive Director of AMCC, and that's David Van Sicklen, our Operations Director. Last Monday of July, we've got a great presentation today. Excited about that, like we have on many Mondays. On other Mondays, if you're new, we have presentation Mondays, and then we have other Mondays where we just have roundtable discussions over the entire 30 minutes. You may ask yourself, why only 30 minutes every Monday? Because we've really figured out that this works for busy professionals like you, me, and all of us, right? Focusing on helping to produce priority products that advance the American project. We're all busy in our orgs, in our networks, and regions around the country. And at the same time, we know that we need better teamwork to make progress too. So we don't mess around. We do these 30 minutes every Monday, and it works, and has been working for over a decade at the beginning of every week, every month, every year. And at the end of every week, we take your inputs from this Monday call, from all the informal info that comes to us throughout the week, and then we marry it with lots of other inputs and put it into, at the end of every week, the AMCC update newsletter that's jam-packed with tools and tactics, funding opportunities, articles related to creating better relationships, narratives, strategies, actions, and ultimately, where we got to get to, better structures to make the products we need to thrive. So this is a presentation call, and even on these calls, we do two quick things up front. I highlight a couple of items from Friday's AMCC update newsletter, and then we give a couple of you the chance to raise your hand or me calling on somebody to introduce themselves and how you and or your organization fits into the manufacturing ecosystem of support in a region, or if you're a national stakeholder on that front too. So that's where we are. It's great to have you on board, and really appreciate your 30 minutes every week. So let's see. The first AMCC update item from Friday. Yeah, after my little speech about the importance of keeping them to 30 minutes, you'll see on the update that our August 11th meeting, we're going to be making an exception to that 30-minute practice with our BFFs from NIST. We'll be co-creating a 90-minute town hall event, and David dropping that info into the chat. And this is going to be a kind of a real-time feedback loop to NIST on this request for information. So that's a fancy lingo for a tactic the federal government uses to collect information from any and all Americans about what kind of a national strategy for advanced manufacturing we're going to have for the next 4 years. For that August 11th, we're going to have a Slido, format, and we'll be collecting good information as to what ought to be in that national strategy. And if you'd only make the first 30 minutes, like our normal Monday call, that's cool. Do it. You can stay beyond that. That's your call. And really important. We're highlighting this opportunity a lot because it's going to matter to long-term American prosperity, getting this straightened out. We've had some previous strategies. This will be a new one where AMCC is drafting a response. By no means will it be comprehensive, but we hope it'll be helpful. Once we have something baked, we'll get it out to you. The RFI response is due September 30th from everyone, from you, your organization, your networks, like I said. So anyway, that's a big thing in the update, and we'll be talking about that right here on August 11th. The other thing, a couple of things in the update from Friday. is our meetup. So many of you will be in person next week in Detroit at the Manufacturing Momentum Summit with our pals from CREC and the Department of Defense, Mantech, focused on defense and workforce. We're going to have a pregame call this week. If you're coming next week, the idea of this webinar, pregame call is what we call it, is so we can get through a bunch of preliminaries. And so when we are in person together next week, we get at key issues sooner than we otherwise would without, dispensing of all these preliminary matters. So please join us for that if you're in for next week. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight from the AMCC update on Friday was the podcast interview that we did with Sue Helper, former chief economist for the Department of Commerce. Yeah, you got to check it out because she says you guys are great for not only the work you do, but that you're fun. So anyway, I thought that was kind of cool, pretty high praise for this kind of work for sure. So anyway, lots more information in there, great articles. A shout out to David Van Sicklin, who takes a laboring oar in collecting all these information, pieces of information and articles sent by you and others to weave it all together. So that's it on the update things I want to highlight. Then on the introductions. So folks out there, people that are new to the AMCC network, raise your hand, tell us where you are in the ecosystem of support. Or if you haven't introduced yourself, in a while, raise your hand and tell us where you are, what region you're in, and what you do. Or, you can just wait and wonder if I'm going to call on you. So anybody want to introduce themselves? Hey there, is it Nalinia? Oh, we can't hear you.
Thank you. Nalina Varenas, or Nell Varenas from Southern California. I'm with Strategic Value Plus, and I found you last week. Was kind of hid in the background, but I'm glad to be here. Strategic Value Plus is a provider for reshoring companies. We provide end-to-end services.
That's great. Well, thanks for sending us information about what you do. You can see in the chat that a lot of people use the chat. So providing links there is a really effective tactic to share information. We're the national manufacturing community of practice for the whole nation. We're free. We're open source. We have stakeholders in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors. And so you're welcome. I'm so glad you're a part of us. And thanks in advance for not only sharing what you know about the ecosystem of support in Los Angeles and elsewhere, but also just participating and getting to know other people here. These relationships are super important. Hey, I see Jack Callahan from the National Association of Counties, and I had the privilege of being there at their annual meetup, right? So we talk a lot about economic development. How do we get every part of the ecosystem of support to lean in on adding value to the manufacturers and the rest of the manufacturing ecosystem of support? So there's about, I think, 3,100 elected decision makers in counties across the country, and so they have a meetup every year. So we're trying to work better. I don't know, Jack, if you can come off and tell folks about NACO and how you guys add value. Yeah.
Hey Matt, good to see you again. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, so NACO, we have over 3,000 counties. We are the National Association of Counties. And what a lot of the work that we do on the economic and workforce development team is helping counties kind of understand where they sit in the ecosystem of economic development. And a lot of that has been kind of trending towards reshoring and foreign direct investment and manufacturing with recent federal policy. So really just kind of taking the time to get county members to understand where they're at in this ecosystem and the steps that they can take to kind of help facilitate new relationships and new technology to be developed. So that's us, and we had a great conversation at our annual conference. Thanks to Matt, kind of about how these county officials can help bolster their ecosystem. So it was great having Matt, and we really appreciate the work AMCC does.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you guys, like so many of these stakeholders, leaning in on their responsibility. Can't be everything, right, in terms of strengthening manufacturing, but if everyone leans in from their particular perch, we're going to move much farther, much faster. And so, it's great to have that.
Hey Matt,
Yes, sir.
before we start with the presentation, can I just respond to one question posed by Jeff Hampton
Oh, please do.
in the chat? So this is related to the town hall that we'll be co-hosting with NIST on Monday, August 11th. Jeff was asking if you should be expecting an update on your calendars to reflect the 90 minutes of the call, and I would say no. If you already have the link to these AMCC Monday calls, you'll have the link for that. It's the exact same link. You don't have to do anything new. If you're trying to invite someone else, please let me know and I'll send you that information if you need it. What we're going to do is the first 30 minutes is going to be more like a lightning presentation and feedback session. So if you only have 30 minutes of your time for that 90-minute session, come for the first 30 and we'll have a really quick sort of speed round discussion with then another 60 minutes set up on the back end for us to have a more thorough long form sort of discussion. So try to come for that first 30 minutes. You don't have to update your calendars, and then stay for the 60 if time allows for you. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, David.
Mhm.
And thanks for you guys using the chat. That's a great tool there. And so now onto our presentation. As I think most folks know, the best evidence is really demonstrating that there are six important, we call it the big six elements of a thriving regional manufacturing ecosystem. And commonly, we have to discuss one of the vexing first elements of that six-part element of the ecosystem of support, and that's workforce and training. And so, we're constantly elevating cool tools and tactics from you all in regions that are trying to improve the efficacy of the interventions that you're creating in your regions to support manufacturing priority products. And so our longtime BFFs from Massachusetts Tech Collaborative, it's great to have Meghan and Abella Bowen here to tell us, Meghan, welcome. Tell us about you, your work, and this workforce toolkit that could help stakeholders around the country.
Certainly. Thank you. And Matt, do I just go ahead and share my own? Okay, perfect. Just
Yes.
wanted to make sure. So my name is Meghan Abella Bowen. I am the Senior Program Manager for Manufacturing Workforce Initiatives at Mass Tech Collaborative and for the Center for Advanced Manufacturing. A nice long title. So let me go ahead and share. Oh my gosh, I forget on which ones share. There we go. And hopefully you are seeing my screen over here.
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, so thank you so much. So basically, I'm here today. Let me put it in presentation mode. I am here today to basically provide you an overview of a statewide manufacturing project we've been doing here in Massachusetts with our community colleges, our community college system, and it's called MassBridge, and it's bridging the gap in manufacturing technology training. And basically, this program was funded through a grant from the Air Force Research Laboratory in Mantech, and it was focused on workforce development programs. And MassBridge's goal was really to bridge that gap between what was happening in our community college curriculum and the evolving needs of our manufacturers. And so to that end, what MassBridge is it's a faculty-led curriculum alignment process that provides a framework for independent community colleges to align are very different programs and curriculum based on shared competencies. And we landed on this for a couple of different reasons. We saw this as a way to help build and expand and promote our community college programs, and to address also our needs for manufacturing. In Massachusetts, we have over 6,000 manufacturers. Over 80% of them are small to medium size, and they're very diverse across the state. And our community college programs are also very diverse across the state, and in some cases are under-enrolled. So we have a lot of opportunity for capacity building here. And so what we did with MassBridge is we said, let's align our curriculum. And why is that important? And first, it was making sure our curriculum was tied to what industry is telling us are their needs today and going into the future. So that was a key focus. Also creating a statewide credential, trying to create a single way for our industry partners to know what we're doing at our community colleges and how to access those programs. And finally, third, it was really improved marketing. For those of you who may not be as familiar, at least in Massachusetts, with our community colleges, many times they market their wonderful community college, come here for an education, but they don't really focus on our programming. And so this was an opportunity for us to standardize a solid marketing message for both our industry partners and potential future students. And then just to give you a little bit of background before I jump in kind of the nuts and bolts of the whole program is Massachusetts has an independent community college system. So we have 15 independent community colleges. Our colleges have manufacturing tech and engineering technology programs. They all have different names. Some have been around for 30 plus years. Some of them have just been created in the last 5 years. And there's no continuity to how they're named. And if I'm a manufacturer, how am I going to find out about them and know which program to use? In addition, we are a unionized state, so all of our faculty have academic freedom. And so the idea originally kind of put out there was, can't we just create a set of courses that all of our community colleges would adopt? And that's just not how our programming works in Massachusetts. So we looked at an opportunity to figure out how could we better align our programs. And so what we did is we created a framework that gives us a process that allows us to standardize student outcomes to industry identified competencies without actually standardizing the curriculum. And to that, path, what we did is we had an approach that was very much iterative in process. We made industry and our faculty very central to that process and constantly bringing them to the table around what were the needs. The faculty over the course of the project developed a set of tools that they use to actually then integrate and basically embed those competencies into their existing programs. And so that was kind of the approach that we took to build it and make it all happen. So what does that look like? I could go really deep into a lot of educational speak. I'm going to try to stay very high because I can geek out on that and not everybody is into all that educational speak. But bottom line is, we started off by identifying common industry skills. We interviewed 175 manufacturers across Massachusetts and surrounding New England around what are their needs for entry-level, middle-skilled manufacturing technicians. And so that was a pretty broad category, but our community colleges serve a broad category. Once we had that, we basically came up with a large number, about 43 skills, but we narrowed that down into what came out to be 9 core competencies that industry was looking for. And with that, we asked our faculty to go back in and perform a gap analysis on their existing curriculum. And what they did is they went through, looked at their student learning outcomes and said, are we actually addressing these competencies? So that was the first step. That was good, but there's no alignment in that. It's just, we can say to industry, yes, we think all of our community colleges are doing it, but it's hard for us to tell them how we're doing it and for them to assess what's happening. So the next step was basically developing common rubrics. And this is allowing us to come up with common language. And I'll give an example of a rubric here in just a minute, but it basically allows us to say, here's that core competency industry told us about, and how do we all agree on what that means? And then once we had the rubrics, we then got to alignment by doing what we called common embedded performance assessments. And that's where we're going to do the alignment. But I'm just going to stop sharing here for 1 second or end my show. And I'm going to bring up the rubric. So when we look at a rubric, What we're saying here is the overarching competency was troubleshooting and maintenance. The faculty had to come together, and we were working with 8 community colleges, so 8 of our 15 community colleges, and anywhere between 8 to 15 faculty at any given time. And they had to land on an agreed definition of what troubleshooting and maintenance was. And then from there, they had to also agree on a set of criteria and how you would assess a student on that. And then ultimately, from a novice to developing to proficient, again, land on what would be those items that a student would show you to prove that they had become proficient in that area. So we did rubrics for all of those 9 core competencies. Once we did that, going back over here, like I said, we went back to the common embedded performance assessments, which is what I will walk you through now. But basically, this was kind of the meat of the project, was how do you get to that alignment piece, and what we kind of refer to as the alignment magic. And I have to, first and foremost say, this is all because of the time and the energy the faculty put on this. I mean, we led the process, but the faculty went through it. And so our job was, we needed to start with something manageable. So we said, let's look at a 4-course certificate, something that we could all kind of narrow in on. And so for us, we said, where do we have courses that already are addressing those core 9 competencies that industry had identified? And as we looked at identifying those core course categories across our 8 community colleges, we came up with 4 courses. And these were just kind of the broad overarching name. It was going to be a 3D modeling course, an introduction to manufacturing, an introduction to robotics, automation, mechatronics, and then introduction to quality. Once we identified that, the faculty came in, they dropped in courses, we created sheets and Google Forms. Faculty came in, dropped in their courses, dropped in all their learning outcomes for those courses, and we began the process of saying, do we have common learning outcomes, and can we develop common language to those outcomes? Once we got to that, we matched those outcomes to the MassBridge rubrics that we had created and the criterion, and then ultimately we're going to develop this assessment. And so what does that look like? Again, what I'm going to show you next looks very crazy in its process, but it actually makes sense once you get into it. So as you see here, this was our introduction to manufacturing workforce file. Each of our colleges across the top dropped in their course's name. And so you can see these courses don't even come close to managing. And you can't read all of this, but basically what you're seeing in the black are their student learning outcomes for each of the courses. What the faculty then did is they came back and they started color coding. Well, I think this one is the same as this one. I think this one is similar to that one. And so they slowly started working through finding, do they have some commonality in these courses? And ultimately, they start aligning those learning outcomes across the courses. But if you were able to read these closely, you would see that all of them are using different language. So in the end, once we said, okay, we think we've landed on some, they ultimately land on an actual final definition of what that student learning outcome is. And from there, we then put it into what we call the common embedded performance assessment. Here is that student learning outcome that they agreed on. So all of them are saying they will all look at these 4 student learning outcomes. Those outcomes tie back to a whole slew of the rubrics. So you can be addressing several different rubrics and several different criterion within that rubric. And then the faculty developed their assessment. And the assessment for each of these programs, and in some cases, there's more than one assessment. This is the one thing all of the faculty agree that they will all do exactly the same. And that's the important part. That's how we got to the alignment piece, because here is where we ultimately say, now we have an assessment. When that course is run, that faculty runs that assessment, and then they basically are saying, is that student a novice? Are they intermediate, or are they proficient? And we can clearly articulate that to industry. We also, once the students do that, we bring faculty back together at the end of each semester, and we look at student work and we basically norm it. So that we're all comparing apples to apples, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to say to industry. And so the last part is, what MassBridge did is we created that process that standardized our outcomes for industry without which allowed our community colleges the flexibility to adopt MassBridge regardless of their current curriculum and also their technological foci. So again, I said some of our programs might be an engineering tech program, some were true advanced manufacturing, but this allowed us to integrate it all in. As I think Matt already sent it out in the link earlier, but we created a playbook. The playbook basically walks you through every single step of what we did and ties back to all of our tools. But we also have created a MassBridge Canvas course, which is free to anybody who would like to utilize it. All of everything you can find in the playbook is in the Canvas course, and you can link to all of our tools. And we make that available to everybody and anybody who is interested. And then last but not least, here's my contact information. You're more than welcome to reach out to me. And I'm just going to show one last thing just to kind of bring home the point. This is the Canvas course. So when you come into the Canvas course, you're going to have everything from, our background, any videos that we are producing, which we are going to be producing some videos here about how to integrate and how to utilize the SEPAs in your class. That can all be found through this process. So with that, I know I'm coming up on time, but I'm happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Oh, great stuff, Megan. Thanks so much. I have a bunch of questions. I'm wondering, I'm sure to put this all together, you guys were doing a landscape analysis of all the different best tactics to approach this. Any other regions around the country that were shiny examples that you drew from?
There's definitely some really good programs happening, and I'm still learning about more of them. I actually listened to your podcast, and so through SME, found out about some programs happening down at Wake Tech down in North Carolina, that they're also doing some work with 12 community colleges. There's schools in other states. So New York is a state where I think it's Mohawk is working, where they are embedding their MEP with their community college. So I think, and then of course, Ohio always stands out, Florida and the FLATE program down there. So we definitely have programs happening nationally that are really trying to work to connect our manufacturers with our community colleges. And I think the more we can do that, we give better strength to our community colleges. And that conversation that happens is instrumental in order for our faculty to make sure that they're updating their curriculum to the needs. But at the end of the day, it also means we need those manufacturers to be hiring from our programs. But definitely lots of great programs across the nation.
Yeah, the alignment magic and the lingo matters. I do wonder, we have another minute here, but I'm wondering about how you motivated the faculty to lean in so extensively, because that seems to me like a special part of the alignment magic. Yeah.
It was. I mean, first and foremost, we paid the faculty. So, we were asking them to commit, quite a bit of time each week to working through this process. So we compensated them for their time. But really the key piece was we started building from the bottom up at the very beginning, engaging them. As I mentioned, a lot of our community colleges may be a faculty of maybe a department of 1 or 2. By creating this, we created a community of practice where they now had a much larger group of faculty to work with. That was huge. And now they are collaborating across on a variety of different regions. So I think it was starting with them, going bottom up. We certainly came in through the administration, but started bottom up, and we kept them very supported. I will always say, put a project manager there. Don't expect faculty to do the whole piece. By having a project manager, we were able to take care of that work for them and keep the faculty focused on the work they need to do, which was curriculum.
Well, thank you so much, Meghan, Abella Bowen, Massachusetts Tech Collaborative, and their Workforce Toolkit and their free and open source course. That's awesome. I look forward to learning more.
And I'll just make one last plug if I can. If people are really interested and you are going to be at the Manufacturing Momentum Goes to the Motor City, I will be presenting on Wednesday afternoon. So if you want to get more details about MassBridge, come to my session.
Sweet. Awesome. Nice work. Thanks, everybody. Have a good week and stay in touch.